Okay, sit yourself onto your lift and just come into a good cross-legged position. Let's have a little wriggle about. Just make sure that you're feeling really comfortable and balanced on the seat bones. And that doesn't come straight away. That acknowledgement doesn't immediately you don't switch it on. You have to spend a moment here and acknowledge and then adjust if necessary. Hold onto your knees and elevate your heart area up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down. Just spend a moment just listening to the sound of the breath. Listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just soften your jaw, drawing the lower teeth away from the upper teeth, making space between the teeth, especially if there is tension in the jaw. Just let the jaw consciously relax. Soften the tongue in the mouth, really consciously activating that softness. And then observe that as you soften the tongue, you soften around the forehead and around the eyes. So every act has a reaction in yoga. So every positive action we make has a reaction somewhere else, a positive reaction somewhere else. And sometimes we don't acknowledge that, we don't observe the positive reaction elsewhere. Take a deep inhalation, bring your hands into Namaste, and then close your eyes with the exhalation. Just spend a moment listening to the sound of the breath. Just spend time to fill the lungs full of positive energy. And allow the lungs to empty from the top to the bottom. Filling the lungs from the bottom to the top, emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. Observe the body's response to the in-breath and the body's response to the out-breath. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere, however minute or easily missed those things in your life might be. So those positive things in life could be as simple as coffee first thing in the morning, could be a loved pet and how they rub against your skin. It could be a friend or a partner. You just bring a sense of joy into your existence. Just focusing on those things in life that bring us positive energy. And then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, and then raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Just hold onto your knees and elevate your chest upwards, elevating your heart area towards the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears at the same time. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen and your ribs and your shoulders across. Just holding on to those feelings of positive energy from that little gratitude meditation that we do at the beginning. Come back to the center, hold on to your knees, lift up into the heart area, and then turn to the right side, to the left, not to the right, turn to the left. Draw in your abdomen, your ribs and your shoulders across, just observing how your body responds to this pose right now, the sensations within the body. And move beyond those feelings of resistance. Maybe there isn't resistance where there's often resistance, or maybe there is resistance where there's usually none. Just allow the pose to draw your focus and attention into the physical body in this precise moment. Come back to the center and then just come off your lift and just come onto your knees and let your shins just press themselves into the floor. So observe where your shins don't connect with the ground. So spend a moment to draw your attention into the skin of the shins. So feeling the shins in contact with the ground, pressing the shin bones into the shin skin so that the thighs come to life. Lifting up into the heart area and then just gently come forward, keeping the chest extending. Breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations, stretching your arms away, and then bring your forehead down. Try and keep the seat bones in contact with the heels if you can, aiming to keep them down. Use a blanket, folded blanket between the seat bones and the heels if they're a long way off. So spend some time just listening to the breath, listening to the in-breath, and acknowledging that the breath is drawing you into the present moment. So where there are feelings of resistance, sometimes those feel a little unpleasant. So acknowledge that resistance, acknowledge that it is there, and then draw your focus into areas of non-resistance and take your attention there rather than allowing that area of resistance to dominate. And observe that perhaps the change of mental perspective has an effect on the area of negative extension within the body. Come up onto your knees, turn your toes under, and then come up into dog down. Just be in the pose, observing how it's feeling for you today. So, are the same discomforts where they always are? Or is there one side of the body that's more actively engaged in the pose than the other? Maybe the hands aren't connecting with the ground appropriately. Maybe it's just the heel of the hand that's taking the weight of the arm. So spread your weight across the palm skin, stretching into the fingertips. Just observe where your body is in 3 dimensions this morning. And come alert to the sensations within the body, trying to make even action throughout the body. Don't forget about the breath. Bring in that internal balance through action. Step your feet forward, just come up into a standing position. Get a couple of blocks for your hands for half uttanasana. And step your feet as wide apart as the mat. Turning your toes inwards, so that the outside edge of the foot lines up really precisely with the edge of the mat. So just check. Feel that the toes are turning in more than your heels. So that's a very subtle action, isn't it? And maybe one that you can't necessarily feel until you spend some time in your feet. Draw your attention into the feet, into the toes, and into the heels. And so when you can feel where they are in relation to each other, that is when your attention is being driven into the feet. That doesn't come straight away, does it? So give yourself some time. Turn the fronts of the legs inwards and raise your arms. Have your arms wide, lifting the heart area to the skies. Inviting in the energy of the universe. Drawn into the body through the breath. hinge at the hips. Just observe the feeling of the pose as you come forwards, stretching into the arms, and then when the body is parallel to, when the upper body is parallel to the floor, bring the fingertips onto the blocks. And then go back inside the pose. Just observe the feeling of the feet. Do they feel equally weighted? Can you feel the toes, the heels? Can you hit the shins back so that you can drive your weight into the heels? Lift the shins out of the ankle sockets, lift the kneecaps away from the shins, lift the thighs up into the hip socket, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. If you can go down lower, then do. Incrementally going down until you reach the floor, as long as you can keep the action of the legs, the action of the spine. Just breathing evenly, just keeping your attention in the feet, keeping your attention into the legs and the torso and the arms. If you can reach around the backs of your heels, drawing yourself through the space between the legs. And then just bring your hands back onto the ground for half uttanasana. Bring your hands into your hips and then come up into the standing position. And then just come up into tadasana. Inner edge of the feet touching, heels touching. And then just observe feeling inside the physical body. Observe the breath as it enters and as it exits. So observing that as you really focus your attention in the feet, in order to activate the feet, it's often necessary to activate the legs above. So you tighten your kneecaps, you turn the thighs, the fronts of the thighs inwards to really access the feet. And accessing the feet helps you to readdress the legs. Activating the legs gives you access into the spine, into the neck, into the shoulders, keeping the jaw soft and the tongue soft, and just observing how each of those actions creates a chain reaction of positive effects. Where there are feelings of resistance, we acknowledge those resistance, but we don't focus on them. Draw our focus beyond resistance into areas of non-resistance, of freedom. And then maybe those areas of resistance quieten down a little. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest. Step or jump your feet nice and wide. Turn your left toes in, your right leg and foot all the way out. And then come down, but keep both legs really firmly activated, especially that back leg. Because the back leg, activating that back leg The reaction of that action is that you can extend into the spine. So just feel your way into the pose. Observe the physical body in 3 dimensions. Also notice that a positive reaction of this pose, if you look upwards, is that the sinus is clear. Keep the feet active. Really feel where the toes are, where the heels are. Lift out of the feet, up into the legs, up into the torso, into the neck, into the shoulders, into the arms. Come back to the center, swap the feet around, turn the right toes in, and the left leg and foot all the way out. And then come over and find the shin, looking up. Breathe evenly and deeply, listening to the breath. Just feeling from the feet up into the legs, into the spine. Feel how taking action in the legs, even action in the legs, results in elevation of the spine. Elevation of the spine allows elevation into the arms, into the head, bringing lightness to the pose, lightness from the inside, bringing clarity to the sinuses. And then come back to the center, bring feet parallel, and then step or jump your feet back together, and then lift up into the chest. Just breathing even inhalations and exhalations. Just listening to the sound of the breath. Spread the toes of the right foot, and then bring the spread the toes of the left foot, and then bring the right foot up into the inner thigh of the left leg. So pressing that foot into the thigh, pressing the thigh into the foot. You can use a wall or whatever you need to help you to find your balance. Really activate that standing leg like you're in Tadasana, sucking the outer thigh into the foot, pushing the foot into the thigh, and then observing from that action of activating the leg, you can lift into the spine. That action of pushing the leg into the foot helps you activate the hips and also elevate up into the spine. Just raise your arms upwards. So I'm in a weird position here where I can't raise my arms, so I'm going to just turn sideways so I can lift up into the arms. Have the arms ideally parallel to each other. I run out the ceiling height here. Lift the heart area to the ceiling. Observe the energy from the feet up into the legs, into the hips, into the torso. Okay, just gently release your arms, release the leg, and then just come back into Tadasana. Spread the toes, lift the leg of your shorts if you can, just to bring space onto the leg. And then keep that right leg really firm. Bring the left foot as high up into the thigh as you can. And just find your leg action. That standing leg, as long as it's firm, then the pushed foot can really stamp into it. Lift up into the leg and then reach up into the arms. Just observe how everything relies on the feet, both feet. So if we have our attention in the feet, then the reaction of that action pays off in the rest of the pose. And then release the leg, release the arms. And have your feet hip width apart, turning your toes in. Raise your arms, lift up into the ceiling, hook the thumb into the crease of the elbows, or you can just use the wall if you're not going all the way down. And then just come forwards and hang down in uttanasana. So just feeling that this stretches out your back, but keep the action in the legs. Are the legs working evenly? So the reaction of really engaged legs is that you can extend into the spine, you can let go in the spine a little. Keep the breath filling the lungs, bringing in positive energy. Drawing your focus away from the resistance, acknowledging that resistance, and then moving your focus into areas of non-resistance. So that you just adjust your focus. So you're not ignoring that gnawing feeling, you're acknowledging it and then moving beyond it. Because that gnawing feeling isn't actually the predominant feeling in the body at all. The predominant feeling, hopefully, is that feeling of release and freedom. And drawing your focus into those areas allowed you to take relief from the resistance, even though it's still there in some shape or form. Release your arms down to the floor, bring your hand into your hips, and then come up into a standing position. Just come down onto the floor in supta, baddha. So pulling the feet close to the seat bones, supporting the thighs if required, to support the hips. So you can put some blocks under your thighs. And then release into the floor. So this initially feels like a bit like a relaxation pose, doesn't it? But can you draw your attention into the feet? Can you press the feet really precisely together? Focusing on the outer edge of the foot. Focusing on the big toes and the inner edge of the heels, lifting the insteps away from each other. And then the response to that focus is that the legs become active. Maybe you lengthen from the inner groins into the inner knees, from the inner knees around to the outer knees, with greater focus and concentration. Draw the abdomen towards the spine. Turn the tailbone towards the ceiling a little, so that the abdominal region draws into the spine and the abdominal walls draw onto the floor. Extend up into the spine. Bringing action into the spine through that consciousness of the feet. Stretch your arms up to the ceiling, interlock the fingers, turn the palms all the way out. Don't worry about cracks and pops. And then extend your arms along the floor. Have support underneath your hands like a folded blanket or some blocks if you have got stiff shoulders. So it's good to acknowledge those areas of resistance. It's good to acknowledge the resistance, but then to move beyond it, give it support if it needs it, and then just draw your attention into more neutral feeling areas of the body. So just like in life, sometimes we become a little fixated on a negative feeling, and that is kind of exponentially reproductive. And then we just push ourselves into realms of disappointment and frustration, and we allow that negative feeling to overwhelm us. But just like in our yoga practice, where there is a feeling of gnawing resistance, we can either fixate on that, and then the whole pose becomes just a one-pronged entity, or we can move beyond it, acknowledging that it's there, never pushing it to the side and ignoring it, because that is where injury occurs, acknowledging its presence, but drawing your focus into areas of non-resistance, areas of freedom where the pose feels good. And then that gnawing resistance, it doesn't go away, but it becomes overwhelmed by the focus of positive feeling. And it quietens down. When we can release in those areas of resistance, that is when we overcome them. So it's simplistic perhaps to suggest that our malaise can be overcome with a change of focus, but in a massive majority of cases it probably can. Just release your arms, swap the interlock of your fingers, and then extend your arms along the floor, reaching along the floor. Just feeling how good it feels to fill up the lungs. How it brings the lungs to life. The lining of the lungs draws in the oxygen from the breath, draws in the prana from the breath. Making the breath consciously non-resistant allows the body to absorb more of the energy. of the breath, the prana. Okay, release your hands. Just release the hands onto the lower ribs. Just observing the breath. Just observing the feeling of energy in the limbs, in the hands from the extension. That feeling of positive lightness. And allow that feeling of intense lightness to distribute throughout the body. Drawing your focus into the feeling of the pose. And then very gently draw your knees towards each other, have the knees together and the feet apart, just resting out the hips. Maybe you didn't notice how open the hips were. Again, a reaction of open hips, open chest is that they've got the capacity to lift the mood. Focus on that feeling of energetic lightness that comes from the limbs that were engaged in the pose. Draw your knees into the chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom. And then just rock yourself up into a seated position and come into cross legs. So just coming into cross legs and then lift up into the chest, just again observing that lightness from extension and distributing that feeling of lightness throughout the body, beyond the areas of non-resistance. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose and then turn to the right side, lifted up into the heart area. Turning the abdomen and the ribs and the shoulders. Just observing if those areas of resistance have changed or whether they're the same. And then draw your attention beyond that resistance into areas of non-resistance. Come back to the center. So hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest. And then turn to the left. Again, just observing areas of non-resistance and the energy that flows from them. So physical sensation, physical resistance is easier maybe to identify than mental resistance. But the mental body and the energetic body and the physical body are one. And if we can draw our attention into the physical sensations of the pose, we draw our attention into the present moment, and we can always do something positive with the present moment. Come back to the center, and then just get your bolster. If you haven't got a bolster, you can use some rolled up pillows with your bolster, and we're going to go along our restorative surfboard pose. So have a bolster for your a block for your head with a blanket on top, just for comfort. And then if you've got something to put underneath your shins, then just a little bolster for underneath your shins. And then just come along the mat, the bolster rather. Make sure that your chin is free of the end of the bolster. And then support your head with the block and the blanket, and then just rest your arms onto the floor, either side of the body. So draw your attention into your breath. Observe how the shoulders can release. How releasing into the floor helps you to release in the shoulders and in the neck. Just observing that feeling of lightness, and perhaps most prominently in the arms. Just let the body release into the bolster. Just feeling that lightness of energy in the legs and the arms. And using your in-breath and your out-breath to distribute that lightness evenly down into the toes and into the fingers and into the top of the head. Distributing that feeling of energetic lightness. Filling your head with that positive energy. Using the in-breath to distribute it up into the brain, to the frontal lobes of the brain. So often discomfort within a pose is as much a framework of mindset as it is a physical sensation. And physical sensations are good when we practice yoga. It reminds the body that we're here. And those areas of resistance are necessary because otherwise, often we don't feel anything in a pose if we're not watching it. So those areas of resistance are necessary and important because they help us to recognize the areas of non-resistance. And the areas of non-resistance allow us to balance our energy so that area of initial resistance becomes quieter and focus becomes more positive because we focus on areas of freedom. So our mind is never disconnected from our body. Our body and our breath and our mind, and differentiating from the mind is the intelligence, the observer that ensures that the mind and the body and the breath are working in synchronicity. And it's only then that we take a glimpse into the blissful body, Ananda Maya Kosa. Just basking in that feeling of positive energy, positive lightness. And then when you're ready to disturb yourself, just bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Push yourself up onto your knees and then just sit yourself and cross legs on your bolster. And just again find balance underneath the seat bones. Bring your hands up into Namaste. Draw your focus into the breath, into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy that you have created inside. And then focus on distributing that evenly around the body. And then radiating some of that positive energy out into the world. And then as you release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open. And the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. So hopefully you feel as though you've really stretched out your limbs, you've brought even energy into the body. So thank you very much for joining me.